What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Wednesday, July 6, 2016, hump day, halfway through the weekday, starting that long, slow glide down to Powwow on a Friday and another weekend. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today that's been going on out there. And the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Mike is sitting in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Now, obviously, starting right now at the top, obviously the aftermath of FBI Director Comey's basically handing Hillary Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card yesterday. And if Hillary's people thought this was just going to fade away, boy, were they wrong. The backlash is furious and intense. Basically, we're hearing descriptions how the United States is now officially a banana republic, where there's one set of laws for the powerful and another set of laws to keep everybody else oppressed. Everybody keeps going back to the 6 felony violations of Title 18 Director Comey acknowledged Hillary committed. The former director of the FBI, Chris Swecker, said there is no question Comey should have recommended charges. Everybody's angry about this. Even Rudy Giuliani is out there saying it's discouraging that Comey has clearly made a special exception for the Clintons to violate Title 18 and get away with it. Now, you can keep your fingers crossed, Rudy, because espionage has a statute of limitations of 10 years. So this is not going away. Judge Jeanine Pirro on Hannity was saying Comey has destroyed the reputation of the FBI, which was kind of a shock to me. I didn't realize they had one to destroy. Over at Western Rifle Shooters, Bracken is out there saying that cowardly Comey took a dive. And yes, that's exactly what he did. He's probably thinking that Hillary is guilty as all get out, but he doesn't want to die under sudden mysterious circumstances, as so many others have done. So we have these 6 felony laws that Comey confirmed Hillary had done. All of these are under Title 18, Section 2232, destruction or removal of property. To prevent seizure, Section 1512, tampering with a witness. Section 1519, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations. Section 2071, concealment, removal, or mutilation generally. I think she violated that one with that email to Jacob Sullivan. Section 641, public money, property, or records. Section 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. And if she partnered with anybody about doing any of this, that brings a conspiracy charge as well. There's no question she's guilty. Even the Associated Press went on out and said, what we're getting from Comey is very, very damaging, because for the last several months we've been getting this line of USDA choice bovine excrement from Hillary and her people about all the things that they were doing and weren't doing. And there's even a video out there contrasting Hillary's statements in past speeches with what Director Comey said. And first of all, her claim that she didn't email any classified material to anyone on her server. There's no classified information. She said that in March of last year. The FBI identified at least 113 emails that passed through Clinton's server and contained materials that were classified at the time of creation, including some that were top secret and referred to a highly classified special access program. Now, special access program files are kept on an isolated network that is not connected to the internet, and they're not allowed to be put on any other device at all. Comey also confirmed that, in point of fact, Hillary's returning of emails to the State Department was not complete. They found more work-related emails that had not been in the batch she returned. I'm getting a real strong sense that Comey wanted to recommend charges and he was ordered by his superior not to. Because if you take out his comment about no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges, everything else he said is incredibly damaging to Hillary Clinton. We're seeing an article over here. This is in the Washington Post, no less. Clinton's credibility gap widens after FBI rebuke. And they're commenting on how Director Comey shredded all of the talking points that Hillary and her aides have used over and over and over again. I think Comey was coerced somehow or ordered. And if he was ordered, that's obstruction of justice. Now, interestingly enough, or perhaps not too surprisingly, a Rasmussen poll is showing the vast majority of Americans do not agree with Comey's decision not to recommend charges. And shout out to all of our on-air affiliates who are joining us at this moment. We're talking about the flashback from Director Comey's refusing to bring charges against Hillary Clinton. And there's a Rasmussen poll showing that almost 60% of Americans disagree. 54% of Americans think charges should be brought. Interestingly enough, that includes 1/3 of registered Democrats think Hillary should be charged. Now, needless to say, we ran our own poll at WhatReallyHappened.com. Do you agree with Director Comey's decision not to recommend charges against Hillary? Yes got 1%, a grand total of 5 votes. No, of course, got 99%, 482 votes as of the last time I checked on this. All right, let's go ahead and grab ourselves a couple of phone calls. We've got Joel in Washington State. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, aloha, Mike. Are you there?
Yes, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Okay, I'm sorry. I, like everybody else, am furious about the iniquitous behavior of this government. It makes me sick to my stomach.
Yes.
But I keep hearing people call and saying, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? And I know we can just sit around and kind of let itself tear everything apart because it will eventually. But besides obeying what the government asks us to do, I would propose this, and I'm no wordsmith by any means, so I think maybe some Rivero's Rangers could come together and do this, but I think that we should go to the White House petition, and we should petition the government to dissolve itself and ask the President, Congress, Senate to just go away, and in the interim, we'll have the states will govern themselves while the states reconstitute a new federal government, unless the states say, hey, I don't want part of this anymore. You guys messed it up too much. And
here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. That White House petition site is merely a public whipping post. And if you go over 100,000 signatures, they promise a response. But in this case, I'm pretty certain that response will be many, many bad words, some of them in a foreign language. Now, believe it or not, back in the 1990s, there actually was a measure making the rounds through the state legislatures called the Ultimatum Resolution. And that one was basically that when the national debt went over $6 trillion, the federal government would be dissolved. And under the Constitution, if 3/4 of the states had ratified that, it would have been the letter of the law. But unfortunately, because most state governments see their job as training for that big step up to Washington, D.C., it failed to reach the 3/4 threshold. The White House petition, it's great politics and PR. It's absolutely ineffective. These people are not going to step down voluntarily. They're going to have to be pried out of those offices with crowbars and chain hoists.
No, I understand that exactly. And here's why I say this. The Founding Fathers, when they put together the Declaration of Independence, they did not expect King George to say, okay, guys, go your way, do your thing. Mm-hmm. It was a statement to say, look, we peaceably want to leave. And I think that's what we as the people of the United States government need to say. Hey, U.S. government, we don't want to fight. We don't want to beef. We just want you to go away, step down. We'll create a new government. So we're standing up saying we want peace. We're asking you to stop. Then if it comes to, which I hope it doesn't, a civil war and violence, again, I hope it doesn't, at least we have stood up and said, look, we want peace. We're proposing peace. Just step down and go away. We have, in a sense, the upper hand because we're saying, look, we want to do it the peaceful way.
Well, I understand the symbolism of what you're doing, and if you want to go ahead and put up that petition and send it to me, I'll certainly post it at What Really Happened. I think it would be significant if we got the 100,000 signatures on there. But except for the obvious undercover plants, everybody who's in this situation right now, they all would like a peaceful resolution to our current evils along the lines of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Unfortunately, the U.S. government prefers the military option because that's the one thing they know how to do really, really well, and that's kill people.
Yes. That's just sad, which is very sad.
It is. All right, well, Joel, thank you very much for the phone call. We've got lines that are full, and we're going to switch over here to Bill in Wisconsin. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. Hey, last night on the Trump Phenomenon show, Paul Fromm pointed out that the prosecutor for Martha Stewart was Comey. Isn't that something?
And he nailed her for lying to the FBI.
Take this book, all right? And she had a stock trading inside operation, $50,000, and we're going to put her in jail. Okay.
Well, she was jailed for lying to the FBI. That's what she was actually jailed for. But yeah, I was going to bring up Martha Stewart a little bit further in the show, but I'd been unaware that Comey was her prosecutor, and that just makes him look like an even bigger hypocrite and a sellout.
Oh, terrible! Now here's what I did. I called the local, in this case, Milwaukee office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Went through all the numbers, finally got a living, breathing person, and I explained that I was in favor of Mr. Comey stepping down, that what he has done is set up two sets of laws, one for the elite, in this case Hillary Clinton, and one for all the rest of us.
All the rest of the hoi polloi.
It's high time that we get rid of this corruption, and he should step down.
Well, he's just made a deal to make himself FBI director for at least another 8 years.
I know,
he's not going to step down.
If they get tons of phone calls, I called, years ago after the Branch Davidian thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, the local guy says, you could tell he was disgusted, that he didn't like what had transpired there. And he said, call Washington. Tell them what you think. And that's what I think all the Rangers should do here. I have a phone
I'm in
number.
agreement with... Okay, yeah, go ahead and give out the phone number.
Okay, 1-202-278-2000. Now, you'll have to go through a lot of recordings until you get a live person, and who knows how live they are. But in any case, I think if they're flooded with calls, then they know we're PO'd.
I think that's a good message for them to get, because I'm sure the people who were behind this whole deal to save Hillary politically, or at least legally, they didn't do it politically, they're convinced this worked. And I mean, it's like Hillary when Benghazi happened, and she was out there saying, oh, in 3 weeks they'll have forgotten all about it. And we never did. And we're not going to forget about this. People are very, very angry, and we need to let everybody in government know that we're angry. Don't threaten violence, or they'll come pay you a call. But
be polite. I was polite.
I would stress being polite, because my guess is probably the ordinary rank and file FBI people do not agree with Comey any more than we do. But they need to get that message. Okay?
Right. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Alex in Florida. Aloha, Alex. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Not much, Michael.
Oh, well, thank you for the call. You're here.
Okay, yes. I think that we need to demand the video copy of the questioning of Hillary Clinton by the FBI. So we ourselves can prove that she lied to everybody.
I don't think there was any questioning going on. I think that meeting between Hillary and the FBI is where they made the deal. And there's not going to be any kind of a record of that. It's like when Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton met on her airplane. She kicked her entire staff out, had them standing on the runway in 100-degree heat so that nobody would be a witness to what Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch discussed.
The fact that that information is not available to us is the biggest scam in the whole world. And I will tell you that it would be so easy for Hillary Clinton to take some of that Saudi money that she got and all her dirty money and give Comey $20 million and give Obama $20 million and freaking give the Attorney General Lynch $20 million, and they'll say whatever they need to say. They don't need that job.
That's entirely possible. I mean, especially with the revelation coming from Norway that foreign donations to the Clinton Foundation have been underreported by 90% in terms of the amount. That means literally billions of dollars has vanished into that Clinton Foundation. We don't know where it's going. One possibility is we keep seeing these Hillary political rallies with like 9 or 10 people besides her own staff, and yet she comes out of the rallies, claiming that she's received another $250,000 in donations from people who don't look like they've ever seen that much money in their entire lives. And they may just be bringing it in a cardboard box and dumping it in the donations bin and say, oh, it's a donation to my campaign.
Yeah. And look at Obama. Can you believe his sorry judgment? What a traitor. That 30 minutes after the verdict was read by Comey, they're out on freaking Air Force One. He's a loser. They are gross.
Yeah, they have to get started on their Above the Law tour across America.
Yeah, shame. Shame on anyone that even thinks for 1 second that Obama is a freaking anywhat near honorable. He's a loser. So is Hillary Clinton. And if they did this crap in China, they would be hanging in the street.
Well,
it is in Iran, they would be hanging in the street.
It is the curse of political power that it attracts the very sort of people who shouldn't be allowed to have it, and that's the model that the Founding Fathers were trying to set up when they created this country, to not have power centralized so that it wasn't such a lure to the bad people. Anyway, listen, Alex, we need to let you go. We're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. Glenn, I may have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Comey was adamant about indicting Hillary, but after meeting with Bill, Loretta Lynch personally waterboarded Comey over 100 times, accosted him with a cigar, threatened his family, and tasered his privates.
Well, that seems to be standard operating procedure, in Hillary's State Department. I mean, whatever it took, blackmail, coercion, bribery, promise of being FBI director for life like J. Edgar Hoover, they met his price, or they found the button that could move him. And again, I'm getting a sense Comey didn't actually agree to this. I think Obama ordered him to say no charges, because if you take out that part about no reasonable prosecutor would charge and you just look at the rest of Comey's statement, he absolutely slaughters Hillary Clinton. He destroys all of her talking points. And I think it was a mixed message, and I think there's a reason behind it.
Where in the president's job description does it authorize the ordering of the obstruction of justice?
It doesn't. It's an impeachable offense. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We got 2 more callers waiting when we get back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take a call. Steve in California. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I'd have to agree with you that Obama gave the order. If you look back, he gave the nomination to Comey after the departing Robert Mueller. I agree that that's probably what happened. But we've seen Obama do a turnaround the last 6 months on, remember Hillary, when she stormed into his office. That was public call us the effing dogs. and he has said, "This is your mess." And then suddenly now he's chummy. He's best friends and campaigning for her. So he's being blackmailed. He's being blackmailed by the Hillary Clinton and the whole Clinton gang there.
Well, let me insert here, because if I am correct, and Hillary Clinton was selling U.S. secrets using her weak email server to deliver the goods and her charitable foundation to collect and launder the money, that's a scandal that could bring the entire government crashing down, and it should. And obviously everybody in government even Hillary's worst enemies are going to be protecting her right now in order to keep on receiving those taxpayer-funded paychecks and offices and rides on Air Force One and the rest of it.
Well, congrats to your listener who pointed out that he was also the prosecuting attorney, the prosecutor for the Martha Stewart case. That's a great call. I'm glad somebody saw that, and I'm going to be definitely sending that out to a lot of people, but that was interesting to know that.
Yeah, and it does underscore the hypocrisy here. All right, well, listen, Steve, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to John in Barbados. Aloha, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Yes, this Comey statement, I had to listen to it 3 or 4 times to believe it. I mean, after doing a first-class demolition job on Hillary Clinton, then goes on say, well, we don't have enough evidence or intent to prosecute, which is totally ridiculous.
Title 18 does not require intent. Title 18 is brought in if you expose national secrets through carelessness and recklessness. And Comey should have read the relevant law, or he knows the relevant law and he's just, flapping his gums. But before he was this prosecutor, he was apparently a banker. HSBC, he left that position to become FBI director.
I mean, legally, I've been looking at things, and what Comey said, extreme recklessness, is actually legally negligence.
Yes.
And so she was negligent, then Title 18 should have been invoked, and she should be facing indictment, without a doubt.
There's no question about that, but Hillary is above the law, and Comey, for whatever reason, he caved. Either he was ordered or some other pressure was brought to bear. But again, I don't think Comey's happy with the situation because, again, if you ignore that end part where he says no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges because they don't want to wind up dead in Fort Marcy Park, he just shreds her talking points and makes it very, very clear that Hillary and her people have been lying all along. And that's bad for Hillary's political career. I mean, when you've got almost 1/3 of Democrats saying she should be charged, she's in serious, serious trouble. Of course, we know she's planning on stealing this election anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at the body language and his reactions as he was speaking, I think that first part of his statement where he demolished Hillary Clinton was his revenge.
I think so.
And because he's been ordered to step away from indictment. So
or he's been blackmailed. Or he was either ordered to leave her go or he's being blackmailed somehow. But we know it happened right after that meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch. I mean, this thing stinks to high heaven.
And the impression that it gives to the rest of the world is that, well, America's descended into a banana republic.
I'm seeing that comment all over the independent media and all over the foreign press. We've lost our image of being a republic with democratically elected leadership. We've lost our image of being some kind of a moral world leader. We're now being seen as a third world tin pot dictatorship.
Well, I think it's such a shame, bearing in mind that my experience of America in the 60s when I was in the military. I mean, it was a wonderful place.
Well, we're going to have to let you go here. We're going to have to let you go and take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls and commentary after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to take 2 more phone calls here, and then we're going to put the lines on hold because I got a bunch of stuff I have to get to. Let's go to Roseanne in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I am freaking livid.
Good.
I went ahead and called the White House, and they asked for my message, and I said, yes, you tell that man that's masquerading as my president that because of the corruption that they just blatantly shoved in our face yesterday, that they have lost the right to govern us. And then I called my congressman to say, hey, you know, he's getting at least $174 a year, $174,000. What is he going to do about this? And they said, well, he doesn't agree with it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That is so lame. You know, you need to come up with something better. And she transferred me to somebody else with fancier words. And I asked again what he plans on doing about this. And the best she could say is, well, you know, Speaker Ryan has called a meeting and they're going to talk about it. And that just makes my head explode. So more talking.
Yeah,
Even
well,
after months of the Benghazi congressional hearings, still crickets, nothing.
Well, yeah, and it's very frustrating, and that's the way government operates. Their goal now is not to provide a focus for the public outrage and anger. So it's going to be hand off and talk to this other person. And as you're demonstrating, this is just going to make the problem worse. This is not going away anytime soon. Okay, so
The only thing I can do is implore my fellow Americans, please call the White House, please call your representative, please call your Senate. Don't go away. Keep on calling.
Well, I would like to add to that it would also actually be more effective and get more done. If you call your local talk radio shows, talk TV shows, get on the air and just scream your outrage so that other Americans hear it and understand they're not alone in their anger and rage over the way our government is operating here.
Will do.
All right. Thank you very much here for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Jason in Massachusetts. Jason's going to be our last call here for a while because I got a bunch of stuff I got to get through. Jason, what's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I know you're up against a hard break. I think I have a few internet converts listening to your show for the first time.
Okay. So well, aloha, the new internet converts.
Excellent. Aloha to you as well. So my point is I want to take a little bit of a different turn because today's news was depressing for all of us. I could hear the anger in your previous caller's voice. Would you agree that we're all angry today?
I would agree that we all need to be. You know, forget depression, you know, don't be depressed, don't be sad, get angry. You know, to heck with anger management, we have a right to be seriously pissed off right now.
That's it. Open up the window and shout in the evening, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So my point is very simply this. With so much media saturation, and we know the media is controlled both sides. Fox is, I guess, okay a little bit, but they're really not. And we all know that. Your listening audience knows that. I know that. My friends know that. So that being said, my point is, and I'll take your commentary off the air so you can get to your next topic, is that do you think that as an overarching theme that this media saturation, it came out that that Guccifer was, you know, killed in prison and then he
but that was a hoax.
Story and all this. They throw it all out there for even us in our community to digest and talk amongst ourselves. They're obviously doing big things behind the scene. Agree or disagree, and I'll take my commentary off the air. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for the phone call. Basically, the government and the corporate media have a serious, serious problem. The vast majority of Americans, in fact, people around the world, are now turning to the Internet and the independent media to find out what the heck is going on because they've been lied to so many times by the government and the corporate media. The trust is just absolutely gone. Well, neither the government nor the corporate media can start telling the truth now because they're carrying a burden of 200 years' worth of accumulated lies. So all they can do is try and trip the independent media up and put out all kinds of junk in the hope that we'll pick up on it so the corporate media can say, look at those wacko tinfoil hat conspiracy nuts out there. And the story about Guccifer first being missing and then being found dead in his cell originated with Sorcha Fall, real name David Booth, who is a known disinfo operative. And I agree with a comment that was on another article about this, we have to be very, very careful when we look at these stories because we know they're trying to trip us up. They're trying to make us look unreliable in the hope that all of the sheeple will flock back to the safety of ABC, NBC, CBS, and so forth. So we have to be very, very careful about that. Okay, we're going to put the phones on hold for a little while because I got a lot of stuff I get to. Speaking of phone calls and calling talk shows, C-SPAN apparently was flooded with angry callers regarding this FBI decision not to charge Hillary Clinton. This may be the straw that broke the camel's back here in terms of waking up the American people as to what's really going on. And again, we have to look at that hypocrisy of all the whistleblowers who were punished. I mean, the Obama Department of Justice has prosecuted more government officials for leaking classified information than all the previous presidents combined. And we're talking about Daniel Ellsberg, Tom Drake, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Leon Panetta, David Petraeus. They all got hammered for far less serious infractions than Hillary Clinton. Yesterday we were talking about this story about an individual named Brian Nishimura, who basically had taken some classified materials home with him because he wanted to work at home. That was it. Wasn't blowing the whistle, wasn't selling them out. He got 2 years probation and a fine and his security clearance revoked. Martin Armstrong was apparently sent to prison because Director Comey thought the phrase, clean up the files, meant an intention to conceal something. And Comey keeps on insisting that he's not going to recommend charges for Hillary Clinton, even though he admits that she has violated 6 sections of Title 18, but it was all a mistake and it was all carelessness and she didn't mean to do wrong. Well, you know, if you run a red light because you're distracted with your cell phone and you kill a pedestrian on that crosswalk, we know you didn't mean to kill that person on the crosswalk. But you're probably going to go to jail anyway. And the reality is Title 18 does not require criminal intent. Title 18 comes into effect if you expose national secrets, period. Including recklessness, stupidity, carelessness. And Comey should know that. But somebody just sent me this story from the Dave Hodges Common Sense Show. And this ties in with what I said about Director Comey coming from HSBC, a bank. And Dave Hodges has made the connection that apparently, according to his sources, James Comey was in charge of the laundering of drug money while he was a top executive at HSBC Bank. So we're all the way back here to the drug cartels are running our government here. Now then, as you know, Hillary has had kind of this light and flippant attitude about this whole issue. Remember when she was out there, if somebody asked, did you wipe the server? And she goes, like with a cloth? Now, one of the things Comey confirmed yesterday is that as the physical hardware for her email server was upgraded, they did not, in fact, wipe those hard drives. Those hard drives, in fact, should have been physically destroyed if they had classified information on them. And apparently Hillary's techs just deleted the mail program, and all of the data for the emails was still on the hard drive for anybody picking up that old used machine to find. And that's how reckless she was here. Now, from Hillary's people's point of view, extreme carelessness, that's the soundbite to celebrate. See, she didn't commit a crime. She was just extremely careless. I think that ought to be her new campaign slogan. Vote for Hillary Clinton because America needs an extremely careless president. And I have a faux button and a poster on the front page of WhatReallyHappened.com. Feel free to copy it off and use it anywhere you see fit. And Hillary and her people are still thinking like lawyers, but this is a political campaign and politics is perception. And Hillary has skated on the espionage charge while inheriting the mantle of extreme recklessness, carelessness, negligence. And those are not qualities the American people are going to want in that Oval Office. Story came out of the New York Post, no less. The FBI just told us we'd be in bad hands with Hillary. She's a goofball. She does dumb things. She's careless. Do we want a person like that holding the keys to the nuclear arsenal? I don't think so. Article coming out of MotherJones.com saying the same thing I am. This case is never going to be over. This is not going to fade into history. When Benghazi happened, Hillary's attitude is, in 3 weeks they'll have forgotten about it. No, we still remember, and we're going to remember this. Judge Janine is out there saying the Clintons repeatedly violate our standard of truthfulness and honesty. And they are both unfit to return to the White House. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. MSNBC Scarborough was out there. Time and time again, the Clintons have proven to be above the law. Another article, Reason.com. Hillary Clinton's extreme carelessness sure seems like a federal felony. And it is. Negligence and carelessness do, in fact, invoke Title 18. Jay Sekulow was out there in a video. The fix was in. Everybody knows what happened. Nobody's buying the official story that Hillary is innocent and sweet, and this is all a vast right-wing conspiracy, and Hillary's feces are not odoriferous. And best of all, of course, is the hypocrisy of Hillary Clinton herself. Back in December 2011, Chelsea Manning's court-martial was set to begin. And Hillary just came on out there saying that, yes, the government should seek, a life in prison. And, we have to have the sanctity of protecting classified information. And the violations deserve, the information deserves to be protected and will take necessary steps to do so. Strong words from a person with a private email server with weaker security than the Ashley Madison website. Now, by the way, even though the story about Guccifer being found dead in his cell is a hoax, apparently Chelsea Manning has been rushed to the hospital after, we're being told, an attempted suicide, but Chelsea's lawyer is saying he can't confirm that. He's not getting any communication from Leavenworth about that. Getting on back to Hillary Clinton, when Edward Snowden blew the whistle on the government's unconstitutional spying on you, the law-abiding American citizen, Hillary was out there saying Snowden should return to the U.S. and answer for what he's done. So she talks pretty tough here, but when it comes to Hillary, back on January 17, 2016, Hillary made the point during that first Democratic Party debate. There should be no bank too big to fail and no individual too powerful to jail. Those are her words exactly. And I'm sure parenthetically she was thinking inside her own head, except of course for me, I'm above the law. I am the law. L'état c'est moi, as it were. Now, Judicial Watch, go Judicial Watch, is asking the Justice Inspector General to investigate what happened during this Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton meeting. It's a wonderful gesture. Nothing will come of it. Loretta Lynch made sure that there was no witnesses and no records being kept, unless she had a secret taping system on the airplane the way Richard Nixon had in the Oval Office. There's nothing there. But the good news is, Director Comey is now himself the target of a congressional probe. And I imagine they're going to rake him over the coals. And they should. This guy sold out the nation for whatever he was promised or whatever secret he was keeping. His share of the laundered drug money proceeds, whatever the heck was going on there. He betrayed the nation. He betrayed his office. He failed to do his lawful duty. Now, Donald Trump is out there saying that the FBI's decision on Hillary proves the system is completely rigged. He's absolutely correct. And Trump is saying when he is president, he will prosecute Hillary Clinton And he can do that because the statute of limitations is 10 years for espionage. And because Comey did not bring charges, she's not going to trial, and double jeopardy does not apply. She is still wide open. And here is the icing on the cake. Donald Trump just announced his pick for Attorney General, Trey Gowdy, who currently chairs the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on Benghazi. And Gowdy has been a constant thorn in the Obama administration's side and the Clintons. And he will not go gently on Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton's in a corner. She's got to steal the Oval Office or she's got to kill Donald Trump. Might even try and do both. Now then, believe it or not, the Hillary Clinton people are trying to bring back this claim that Donald Trump is a pedophile. They can't actually find anything on this guy because he's not a career politician. And so they're just making this stuff as they go along. Now, they actually tried to file this lawsuit out in California. The courts kicked it out as an obvious sham. Now they're refiling it, I think, in Florida because the closeness to Jeff Epstein. But they're basically out there saying that they're suing Donald Trump for $100 million because he had sex with this underage girl on Jeff Epstein's orgy island. There's only one problem. In the original complaint that was filed in California, the address given for the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, turned out to be a boarded-up house, and the phone number was disconnected and had previously belonged to a dentist. Trump's lawyer is saying we can't actually find that this person actually exists, which is a real good way of not allowing her to be cross-examined. But Trump has a constitutional right to face his accuser, and if they can't produce one, this is all for fodder for the dump Trump media. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. Now, over at governmentslaves.info, they have found a video clip from ABC News reporting on their 2020 investigation. This was back in 2008, and Hillary Clinton is caught on tape saying she doesn't want to use email due to wanting to keep from having them come up in later investigations. So she knew exactly what she was doing. All right, we're going to grab a quick phone call here. Seth in Oklahoma. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mr. Rivero?
Yes.
How are you? You remember you were talking about the Chinese building the telescope?
Yes.
The bigger one?
Yep.
I sent an email today, and there were some pictures on it, and like for the past year and a half, I've been witnessing this phenomenon outside my house.
Yeah, I got the pictures. I haven't had a chance to analyze them. Thank you very much for the phone call. I'll get back to you by email. All righty.
Thank you, sir.
Now then, interesting story coming out of the Smoking Gun. Apparently, they have uncovered a copy of a 22-page plan by the Democratic National Committee to crash the Republican National Convention and cause huge amounts of disruption. We have the friendly contest between the two traditional parties getting into violence and brown shirt type maneuvers. We're back in Richard Nixon territory, disrupting conventions. And that's what the brown shirts did to bring Hitler to power. They went on out and they disrupted the political rallies of the opposing parties. That's what's going on. Now, as you know, out in California, there are a couple of lawsuits, one of them down in San Diego, that want to force a recount, or actually a first count of those provisional ballots. Now, what happened out in California was that voters who had registered as independents found themselves accidentally registered for the American Independent Party, and they were given a provisional ballot. They should have been given a cross-party ballot, but the poll workers were instructed not to mention that such a thing exists. And so most of the people who wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders but hadn't been in the correct party voted provisional ballots. And there are more, or should I say were, more provisional ballots than the total number of votes for Hillary Clinton. And now there's a story coming on out that the provisional ballots are being destroyed in a covert shredding operation. And so far, almost 1 million of those provisional ballots have been illegally shredded. They're not even trying to hide the election fraud. Now, we got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And yesterday during our show, we had a Homeland Security expert call on in and tell us we should be on the lookout for some kind of a staged event to take the focus off of FBI Director Comey and his basically giving Hillary Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card. And that may be underway because apparently down in Louisiana, there's been another shooting of a black individual by 2 white police officers. Now, the story is the police were called because of a report of a man with the gun. They showed up. They got into a tussle. The man did have a gun. And the police, after fighting with this guy, shot him and killed him. Black Lives Matter is already out there saying that they're going to cause riots and destruction all over the city here because you can't kill a black man no matter what he's doing, just like you can't jail Hillary no matter what she's doing. So this may be it to try and give the media something to report on that isn't about the corruption at the highest levels of the federal government. And like other media distractions, it's not likely to gain a whole heck of a lot of traction. Now, getting on back to the massive amounts of vote fraud during the primary season, the clear bias by the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz in favor of Hillary, which is a violation of DNC rules. There are reports of major protests being planned for the Democratic convention, so it's going to be a little tit for tat. Both conventions are going to be extremely intense as they crown the Empress Hillary and try and find some way to get rid of Donald Trump here. Now, getting on back to Jeff Epstein. At one point, when he was doing his negotiation for a plea bargain, because he got off really light for what he'd been doing with all those underage girls, and he got off very light. And one of the comments he made in his letter is that he co-founded the Clinton Foundation. And I wouldn't write that off too quickly, because we know the Clinton Foundation exists on multiple nations. There's a lot of secrecy, and there have been rumblings that the scandal involving the Clinton Foundation is far more wide-reaching than Hillary's email server, and that a lot of top-level people have been sharing in the corruption. It's a slush fund. And Epstein's claim would suggest that as well. All right, the other thing that has happened today is finally, after much waiting, the Chilcot report came out regarding Britain's entry into the war with Iraq. Not many new revelations in it. It does confirm and vindicate a lot of the observations we've been making. There are still some gaps. Now, a lot of the people who lost family in the Iraq War are seeing it as a vindication and a victory. And they're saying basically Tony Blair cannot be allowed to walk away to his merry life and his millions. But the report, in its own way, is still a bit of a whitewash. Because while they talk about Tony Blair exaggerating the danger from Saddam Hussein, they stop short of saying he lied. And they should have. Instead, they're in this sort of gray area of exaggeration. Now, the foreign press is reporting that the Chilcot report does suggest Tony Blair fabricated much of the claims used to sell the war. But the American media, interestingly enough, continues to use the phrase flawed intelligence. And the reason is obvious. George W. Bush was party to those very same lies. And the U.S. government doesn't want you knowing that they lie you into wars, because more wars based on more lies are on the horizon. And by the way, happy 70th birthday to W. Now, interestingly enough, Tony Blair's letters to George W. Bush are to be released. They're public documents, communications from one head of state to another head of state. Interestingly enough, President George W. Bush's replies will not be made public. There's something in there as well. Do you know that from World War II, all of the communication between Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt has been declassified and made public with one exception? And that's a communication sent by Winston Churchill to Roosevelt December 6th, 1941. Still classified. A lot of history in those classified documents. Okay, so basically Blair is out there saying, I reject the conclusions, and nobody's listening to him anymore. Another story coming on out from the New York Times, no less. Chilcot report on Iraq War offers devastating critique of Tony Blair. And again, it's a limited hangout. Oh, Tony Blair, he did some bad things. But they stop short of saying that the entire case for war was based on a lie. They just made it up to support the existing decision to go to war against Iraq. All right, I want to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates. They're just now rejoining our network. We're talking about the Chilcot Report. Finally came on out. And while it wags its finger sternly at lots of individuals, it's still a bit of a whitewash, because they're still pushing the idea that it was all a big mistake and flawed intelligence. And we know otherwise. There was the Downing Street memo in which they admitted they're fixing the propaganda around the agenda to go to war. And Blair's dodgy dossier was an outright fabrication. They stole most of it from a 12-year-old college thesis paper. It was hideously outdated. They lied to the people. By the way, Blair is insisting that the meeting between him and George Bush in Crawford, Texas, the year before the war began, never happened. It's part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. No, it's the labor conspiracy. It's the Tory conspiracy, whatever they're going to see here. And interestingly enough, story coming out of Washington's blog is reminding everybody that here in the independent media, we all knew Iraq did not have nuclear weapons. You were lied into the war. Now, interestingly enough, the Royal Navy Admiral Lord West has gone public saying he was told in 2002 to make plans to invade Iraq. Not too surprisingly, Lord West was not invited to give evidence to the Chilcot inquiry. It was a whitewash. Now, turning to the Brexit and its aftermath, on examination, it's turned out the vast majority of the signatures on the petition to redo the Brexit referendum have turned out to be fake. Manufactured, computerized phantoms. There really is not a desire for a redo of the Brexit vote among the British people. Now, Angela Merkel has apparently decided that her nemesis in all of this nonsense is Jean-Claude Juncker. And she is now basically saying her goal is to oust him as head of the European Union. So it's nice to see them infighting against each other, I think. Now, Barack Obama has announced that yet again he is not going to keep his promise to return all of our troops from Afghanistan, and is saying that they're having to revise upward the number of U.S. troops who will remain there in Afghanistan. He broke his word again. And they're in Afghanistan to guarantee the oil is flowing to American oil companies and the opium is flowing to American drug lords. Okay. According to Anton Mazur, the leader of the Russian delegation to the Vienna talks on military security and arms, basically said NATO's actions are provoking risks and challenges to Russian security interests. That's absolutely true. Our media is saying Russian aggression, Russian aggression, Russian aggression. Russia's not the aggressor here. You don't see Russian troops massing on the north side of the border with Canada. You don't see Russian troops and weapons massing on the south side of the border with Mexico. You don't see Russian warships and warplanes tooling around the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of California. It's all NATO. It's all the United States massing on Russia's borders. We know who the aggressor is here and how desperate they are to get these wars going. Now, Israel's Netanyahu did his usual whining and arm twisting and basically succeeded in watering down a report that was coming out about Israel's continued building of settlements. And Netanyahu succeeded in having the wording changed to remove the word illegal, which those settlements are. Those settlements are illegal under international law. And Israel used their various Israel firsters in all these different countries, United States, European Union, United Nations, and Russia, to remove that word so that people reading that report don't understand these are criminal actions on the part of Israel. Turning to the economy, U.S. commercial bankruptcies soar 49% in 1 year. That's the worst since 2009, shortly after the mortgage-backed security fraud collapse. The European Union banks are crashing to crisis lows as the funding panic accelerates. Now, the Italian Prime Minister is out there saying the big problem that nobody wants to talk about is Deutsche Bank. Now, Deutsche Bank has been in the news a lot. They've been caught involved in various frauds and rigging. A lot of their executives have died under very suspicious circumstances. And the real elephant in the room is Deutsche Bank is currently holding $75 trillion with a T dollars in derivatives. That's 20 times more than Germany's gross domestic product, 5 times bigger than the entire economic output of the entire Eurozone. It's a disaster waiting to happen. It's that big, giant 11th marble getting ready to crash to earth. Let's see, story coming out of Zero Hedge. It feels like 2008. Government bond yields signal something very nasty is coming. Treasury bond yields are at record lows right now. Even Goldman Sachs is out there saying there's going to be a sharp plunge in stocks in the next few months. And we're hearing a lot of the top investors are bailing on the traditional investments and they're going into hard assets like silver, gold, platinum, and tantalum. We're going to take a phone call here. Matt in Colorado. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. What can we help you with?
Oh, I was just thinking about the things that you were talking about and how to effectively create a plan to positively impact the United States and our people and our citizens when it's so corrupt from top down. And I don't know what to do, and I think that we should make a plan because you have very well articulated the issues, but we don't have a plan, and they will just kick us in the rear end. And
well, here's my plan. I do have a plan. Okay, the United States government does not have enough military people to forcefully coerce the entire 300 million population of the United States into doing what they're told. The way they're able to rule and control us is through lies, fraud, and deception. But when the public realizes it's all lies, fraud, and deceptions, they're simply going to stop cooperating. And I really do think that the United States government is heading into the dustbin of history the same exact way the former Soviet Union did. When the samizdat exposed to the general population how much they were being lied to, and people stopped listening to the government, they stopped believing in the government, they stopped trusting the government, and it all came crashing down. Because they don't have the resources to force us to do what they want. They've been getting everything they want from the American people by lying to us. And when they lose the ability to lie with impunity, which is a victory for the independent media, it's just a matter of time before it comes crashing down. So my plan is, remember Gandhi.
Yeah.
Okay?
And in regards to the derivatives,
yes,
those are just pieces of paper.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
Actually, they do.
I mean, the entire global economy is going to collapse. It's going to, because that debt in the fiat currency, as it's built up, is unsustainable and reckless and insane. And it's basically a printing press that will become buckets of, they don't even do cash anymore, so it'll be ones and zeros. But you know better than I do. I mean,
yeah,
it's not gonna.
They're going to inflate the value of the money to absolutely nothing, and the system is going to collapse. The derivatives are a big problem because the economic system is still trying to play by their own rules internally, and derivatives should have been regulated. Congress refused to do it when it was recommended, and it's a crisis completely out of control. Nobody knows what the true derivatives exposure for the globe is. I've heard close to $1 quadrillion, more than the planet is worth. And
you know what a coin is? It seems to me like it's people on the Titanic jumping off. I don't understand what a quadrillion is.
Well, it's a lot. Well, it's 1,000 trillion. Okay, and when you realize Deutsche Bank by itself is holding 75 trillion, you realize it's not that unreasonable a number for the global exposure to derivatives. And they're hideously destabilizing, but then the whole banking system was a Ponzi scheme, and it's unstable from the start. And even now, we've got the International Monetary Fund is admitting debt-based economies are unstable. The same thing I've been saying for year after year after year. I remember when I first wrote that article on the 11th Marble, some big shot on Wall Street wrote this big, long explanation of why I was absolutely wrong, and apparently hardly anybody read it because he was trying to hide behind jargon and his academic credentials. And
well, if you say debt-based economies are unstable, that inherently implies that there is someone that is a creditor and someone who is borrowing the money, and that means that they have control over you. And that's
exactly
what they do with the Federal Reserve.
That's
it's
exactly
totally
right.
Insane.
That's why we fought a revolution to get rid of the Bank of England. Only 100 years ago, we had a corrupted president and a corrupted Congress sold us back into that same system of banker slavery. And what we're looking at right now is, in the past, when a nation with a private central bank collapsed, the other nations with private central banks would chip in to get them started back up again, keep the scam going. They've been running this scam on the human race for 300 years now. But because of globalism, because of those derivatives, when it comes down, it's all going to come down. And we need to be ready to stand up and say, no more private central banks ever, 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 ever.
I agree, and I think what is so misunderstood by people is that if the bank can print money and then charge you interest, and that happened in 1913 in the United States, anyways.
It's happening to this very day. I mean, there was that Credit River mortgage foreclosure case. It's infamous. Wall Street likes to pretend it didn't happen. But a guy saved his own home from foreclosure by getting the bank to admit they just typed in a bunch of numbers in the computer to let him buy the house. There had been no due consideration.
That's representative of everything that they're doing on every single level. And at this time, I just find it embarrassing and unacceptable. If you just look at what is the real GDP of the United States, goods and services? No, I mean, I'm thinking like we have all of the resources that we need, and there is this group of people who are extracting wealth from us and keeping us in a slave class as serfs in a new medieval feudalism, which is totally unacceptable.
I agree.
It's not going to continue.
I agree. Neo-feudalism. And feudalism is an older form of fascism, and it's just all about the money junkies. wanting to own it all and renting it out to future generations of humans. Thank you for the phone call, Matt. Got to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to take a phone call here. George in Texas, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? I was sitting there watching the news. They had Hillary out in Atlantic City standing behind one of Trump's closed casinos in Atlantic City, sitting there going, you can't trust Trump because he declared bankruptcy and all that stuff, yada, 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 yada. And it's like, and the thing is like, one thing I learned about, with Hillary and people in government, when something fails, they subsidize it. At least when Donald Trump, when he loses money on, goes bankrupt, he accepts responsibility.
Well, there's another factor. The reason Donald Trump's casinos got into trouble was the economic downturn, which was not his fault. Going to a casino, going to a hotel for a vacation, that's a luxury item, and Americans just didn't have that kind of money. And Donald Trump is a victim of the economic crash that was brought about by government policy. And Hillary's being very disingenuous to try and make it look like, Trump is just a bad businessman. Trump was a victim of the economic realities of the time. As well, we all were.
I mean, and another thing, too, I don't know, another thing I know is at the DNC convention, they make it look like the best things is like having Snoop Doggy Dogg entertain at the Democratic National Convention.
Okay, that's...
How low can they go? I thought Black Eyed Peas, they go bad. That was bad enough.
Well, how low can they go? Just as low as they feel they need to. That's unfortunately the reality of life today. All right, well, listen, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to go back to the news here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. The Russian Central Bank is now moving from U.S. dollars to Chinese yuan for their foreign currency reserves. They can see the writing on the wall. They want yuan-denominated assets, and they're looking to diversify, and they don't want to be tangled up with the U.S. dollar because it's starting to come apart. Now, the French government has just used an emergency measure to pass that labor bill through Parliament without an actual parliamentary vote. And they did that because nobody who's currently in the Parliament wants to be on record as having voted for it. It's absolutely hated by the French people. It's loved by the Eurocrats. It's just austerity in a different wrapper. And the French people are rising up literally by the millions to protest the ruling elite. And when you go to the story and you look at the photograph, it's an immense, immense crowd of very, very angry people. Now, this story is getting zero coverage here in the United States of America. They don't want you slaves getting uppity ideas about independence and freedom and not having to obey distant remote governments made up primarily of bankers here. And the situation is about to ratchet up just a little bit more because Francois Hollande, the French government has basically passed their equivalent of an executive order to curb the French uprising. This is one step short of declaring martial law. So this is getting right to the brink of a new French revolution. And my sympathies are with the French people, obviously. Toyota is going to let go of 800 workers in Thailand. They're saying that sales of cars have just plummeted. They've got no place to put them. And by the way, if you look on TV commercials for car companies, those are amazing prices. I'd love to buy a new car. But, nobody's got money. So they lower the prices, and then they wonder why nobody can buy any cars. Well, because we lost our higher-paying jobs that were offshored to other countries. If you don't allow your people to earn decent wages and salaries, how dare you expect them to go on down to the store and buy whatever it is you're selling? Samsung has cut 55,000 jobs in the last 36 months. People aren't buying the new whiz-bang every few years. They're hanging on to their old equipment as much as they possibly can. A 14th Obamacare co-op has just collapsed. This is up in Connecticut. And they're basically saying they're not getting the federal funding they were supposed to. More when we come back. Hi, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking about how the Connecticut Obamacare Health Co-op has collapsed. They're not getting the money they thought they were going to be getting from the federal government. This is now 14 out of 23 nationwide co-ops to shut down since they were created in 2014. There are only 9 still left out there. Now, a court has struck down one of the health care rules, and probably if you're like me, you're going to be delighted to hear this. A federal appeals court has ruled that consumers must be allowed to buy certain types of health insurance that do not meet the stringent standards of the Affordable Care Act, deciding that Obama's administration had gone way beyond the terms of federal law. In other words, you can buy certain types of health insurance that are not Obamacare compliant. Now, Obamacare has been a complete and unmitigated disaster, both in its overt purpose of providing affordable health care to the American people and in its covert purpose of generating vast profits and wealth for the health insurance companies, with the government getting a piece of the action in the form of taxation. So, now then, our little article came on out. The Yahoo Finance editor-in-chief came on out with an article which basically said, we're suffering the effects of too much democracy. There's really too much of this will of the people thing. And he literally wrote an article saying it's time for the elites to rise up against the ignorant masses. Well, Mr. Yahoo editor-in-chief, I don't see myself as ignorant. I'm definitely part of the masses. And this kind of arrogance on display, I don't think is going to calm down the situation that we're seeing start to evolve in this country. So let's talk about immigration now. Migrants crossing the Mediterranean are increasing by 60% in a year. It's estimated 227,000 have arrived in Europe since the start of this year. We don't know how many of them are actually terrorist operatives working for ISIS, working for the U.S., working for Israel, because these people are not being vetted. Ukraine protesters are disrupting traffic to Poland over border controls ahead of the upcoming NATO summit. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's unhappy. All right, now let's talk about what's going on here in the United States of America. As I mentioned earlier in the show, yesterday we got a call from somebody involved in Homeland Security saying we need to be prepared for some kind of a staged incident to lure the corporate media away from Hillary Clinton's get-out-of-jail-free card. And it may be manifesting down in Louisiana, where there's been a shooting of a black man by 2 white officers. Apparently it was justified. The guy did have a gun and was fighting back. But Black Lives Matter is out there saying, we're going to riot, we're going to destroy everything, because you don't kill a black man no matter what he's done, just like you don't jail Hillary Clinton no matter what she did. And I'm not trying to give the police a clean slate here. They've killed at least 2,611 people since Ferguson, most of them under very, very questionable circumstances. Now, there's been another case involving a shooting, and this was down in Texas. A guy by the name of Gilbert Flores, 41, was shot dead in the front yard of his parents' home by 2 Bexar County deputies who justified the shooting, saying that he lunged at them with a knife. And the grand jury refused to indict based on their story. Unfortunately, a video shot from across the street surfaced, showing Flores with his hands in the air, not holding a knife, being shot and killed by the police officers from 20 feet away. Now, are we dealing with the aftermath of all these Israeli security companies training our police? Are we dealing with the aftermath of police who are on these prescription antidepressants? Because there was a study done down in Florida showing that police consume far more of these dangerous medications than the average American. And right now, the average usage of antidepressants is 25% of the population are on these medications. And it just came out, I think we reported it yesterday. It doubles your risk of suicide, which doesn't sound like what you would expect an antidepressive drug to do. But if you go over to ssristories.org, you will see hundreds and hundreds of documented cases of perfectly normal people being put on these medications by their doctors and then immediately exhibiting weird behavior. We know that Omar Mateen down in Orlando, shortly before this whole false flag at the Pulse Club, was doing web searches on psychosis. Was he put on these medications? Were they messing up his head? Was he getting worried that it was him and not the medication? Because most people, when they have adverse reactions to prescription psychiatric medication, they can't believe the doctor or the pharmacist made a mistake. It has to be them. So, speaking of drugs, interesting article over at Blacklisted News. Why the war on drugs is a huge failure. And it is. And it's put a lot of people in jail. It certainly hasn't stopped the drug problem. And the reason for that is quite simple. The war on drugs is a war on the competition's drugs. To maintain a drug monopoly in this country to maximize profits. And the drug lords of this nation use the U.S. government as their button men, as their enforcers, to go on down and say, you're not allowed to sell drugs in our toif. You're not allowed to do that. Bad things going to happen to you if you're selling your drugs on our toif. And we know the U.S. government has a long history of involvement with illegal drugs. Do you know that Skull and Bones fraternity at Yale University? Its official name is the Russell Trust. And the Russell family fortune was made selling opium to Great Britain, who then turned around and sold it to China. Britain literally fought a war with China over their right to turn the Chinese people into opium addicts. And that's where the Skull and Bones money comes from. Drug money. Now, I will grant you, at the time the Russell family was doing this, what was politely called the China trade, it was a legal crop in this country. But you know, when you make a fortune with an illicit substance, the first thing you do is you get it banned so that nobody else can compete with you. Prohibition was another good example of that. Prohibition created an instant market for bootleg alcohol. The money was so great, it literally changed the American political class. That's how the Kennedys came to power. Old Joe Kennedy was a rum runner. And once they'd settled in with their new treasures, they allowed Prohibition to be repealed so that up-and-comers couldn't use the same means to challenge their wealth and power. It's the politics of contraband. Now, along the way with this war on drugs, there's a lot of harm being done. And one is that this idea on marijuana being banned, it's bad. I'm old enough to remember when they were showing reefer madness in school classrooms, which is a very laughable piece of propaganda. And now we're finding out marijuana has some major medical qualities to it. The big pharmaceutical companies are trying to figure some way they can patent it so they can sell it to you rather than have you grow it in their backyard. But there's a new study out showing that marijuana can actually reverse the effects of Alzheimer's disease. And that would be a really good thing. But of course, Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about that. They want you to buy their medications for Alzheimer's disease. It's removing from you the choice over what you're going to put in your body and what you're not going to put in your body. That's what it's really all about. Now, as you know, there is a major fight going on regarding vaccine truth, vaccine safety, freedom of speech. We know that the movie Vaxxed was pulled from the Tribeca Film Festival. Robert De Niro was literally threatened by the festival's financial backers. They would pull their money out unless he killed the film. And he did. And it's very obvious he feels very bad about that, because he's out there talking about people seeing this movie, and it is being screened at various places around the country. You have to hunt it down, though. Nobody in Big Pharma wants you to see this movie at all. And now De Niro, who himself has a child who became autistic after that big slug of multiple vaccines, says there has to be a discussion. And he's absolutely right. And now he's getting ready to produce his own film. But there's another one. It was produced in Europe, shot in Britain, Germany, Belgium, and Italy. It's called Man-Made Epidemic. And it has also been the subject of censorship and vilification. This film was scheduled to be shown at a major film festival in London, and pressure was brought to bear on the film festival organizers, and they yanked it from the lineup. Can you tell that big pharmaceuticals have something they're hiding from you, something they're scared about? So, Man-Made Epidemic is an important film, and it is now available for viewing online. It's a pay-per-view, $9 a screening. And it has whistleblowers from inside the industry saying this is all a big, giant scam to make money. They didn't want to waste their time trying to make money off of sick people. Sick people have a bad habit of dying, at which point the money stops, and even worse, you get lawsuits. So the big business model is selling medicines to perfectly healthy people. And our modern pharmaceutical industrial complex, if you will, is operating on the same moral level as the traveling Wild West medicine show. They roll that wagon into the middle of the town, they crank down that backstage, they have a hoochie-coochie girl do a little dance to draw everybody in, and then the pitchman goes on out and says, out there on the far side of the Great Plains, there's a plague laying waste to the Native Americans, and it's a-coming this way. And it will devastate and ruin your lives unless you buy a bottle of Dr. Mike's Fix'ems. So he sells you little glass bottles full of pepper oil, takes his money and skedaddles. People in the town drink the pepper oil, think they're protected from a non-existent illness, and they go home happy. And that's how modern pharmaceutical companies work. The difference is that in many, many cases, demonstrably, what is in those little bottles is harmful. It's poorly tested. Apparently, nobody ever actually tested what happens when you mix these vaccines together in a multiple shot, and now they're finding out it causes problems. Those are very dynamic chemicals in there. They interact with each other. Plus, you're getting the adjuvants from all 8 vaccines at once. No wonder kids are coming down with spiking fevers and autism and sudden infant death syndrome. It's even on the package insert. Yes, this vaccine could actually kill your kid. But if your kid dies, we're going to claim that you shook him to death and put you in jail. That's the way they operate. Now, here in Hawaii, a little bit of good news. Down on Kona, there is a couple who used to own a coffee plantation. They've had to sell it for financial reasons. The wife was using Monsanto Roundup heavily and came down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is turning out to be a common event with people exposed to glyphosate. Remember, the World Health Organization came on out and said glyphosate is a probable carcinogen. So this Kona coffee grower sued Monsanto for the medical costs involved with her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Monsanto came on into the court and said, this is ridiculous. They're getting this off the internet and all those tinfoil hat-wearing kooks. You can't believe a thing they say. The judge didn't listen to them. Rejected the motion to dismiss. The lawsuit is moving forward. I'm still trying to track this couple down and get them on the show. But all of their existing contact information is now obsolete. But I am trying to find them and get them on the show. Because, you know, they're Kaahumanu. They're local. Next island, big that way. And that Kona coffee is wonderful, wonderful stuff. When we look at how corrupt our government has become, which FBI Director James Comey put on full display yesterday, you begin to understand why large corporations are allowed to sell dangerous, ineffective, unsafe products with the government's blessing. Because it's all about the money. It makes money. That makes it okay. As long as it makes money, it's good. If it's costing us money, it's bad. Health and safety of the people, who cares? The sicker they are, the more money we make off of them. Go ahead and poison the heck out of them. They don't have a right to be healthy or keep their own money. Now, if you are the user of an Android phone, you need to be on the lookout. There is a malware, advertising malware, called Hummingbad. It originated from China. It apparently came from a known online advertising company that previously had a good reputation, but they decided to step across that line into the dark side. And so far, this malware has infected 10 million Android devices. It pops up ads that you do not want. It gets your contact information for more advertising, targeted advertising. And, of course, it runs down your battery and uses up your CPU cycles. And unfortunately, on Hummingbad, at this point, it's virtually impossible to detect other than by its symptoms. And right now, the only possible way to get rid of it, because it's a rootkit, is you have to factory reset your phone, which means backing up everything onto your personal computer and hitting reset and getting back to that generic out-of-the-box phone, then reinstalling everything. It's a little frustrating and a little angering. And again, where is the National Security Agency, which is supposed to be protecting our computer infrastructure? And by the way, you probably have noticed the volume of scamware and emails and all this stuff has just gone right through the roof lately. Somebody's declared open season on the American people. And I'm not happy about that either. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And the phone lines are open if you want to call in and talk about Hillary or the FBI or any of this other stuff. 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Now, interestingly enough, there's a chain of inquiry that's starting to open up. And it began with Dave Hodges' Common Sense show talking about how FBI Director James Comey, while he was with HSBC, is reported to have been overseeing the laundering of drug money. And now there's a new dimension added to that story coming out of 21st Century Wire, saying that during Loretta Lynch's confirmation hearing to be Attorney General was her handling of the HSBC money laundering case, where basically, while she was U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, allowed HSBC to avoid criminal prosecution of bank officers and other employees. HSBC did admit to the money laundering, paid a hefty fine. So you can see the pattern that's emerging. All these people are tied together by drug money. Now, we know the Clintons got their political start down in Arkansas, where then-Governor Bill Clinton sat at the north end of the Iran-Contra gun and drug-running pipeline. Guns without serial numbers were being manufactured by various companies in Arkansas. They were paid with official Arkansas checks from the Arkansas Development Finance Authority that were listed as business loans, but then zeroed out. And the guns were smuggled down to Nicaragua by smuggler pilots like Barry Seal. And on the return trip, they brought in tons and tons of cocaine to be sold to your children. And they all got very, very, very rich. So now we're looking at the fact that the biggest drug smuggler in the country is the country. And all these people seem tangled up in that same drug money matrix. And I think we need to look at that because, again, the real big scandal is over at the Clinton Foundation. It's not the email server. It's that Clinton Foundation and all the money that has vanished into that. That's untraceable. I think that foundation is the core of the Clinton scandals. And when you look at other countries that have fallen under the control of drug lords, you begin to understand why FBI Director Comey gave Hillary Clinton a pass yesterday. We'll be right back. Hello, hi America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Go ahead and call on in because I'm actually starting to run out of material here. But what's really interesting is going on out and doing a web search, and people are starting to send me this stuff. This whole axis, if you will, of James Comey and Loretta Lynch all seems to be tangled up with this HSBC scandal of laundering drug money. That's the common point of overlap. And we need to be paying attention to that. Now, we know that the U.S. government's been involved in drug smuggling for a lot of years. They were bringing in heroin from Vietnam inside the body bags of our dead soldiers. They had to transship it through Hawaii because they didn't have enough. They didn't have airplanes that could cross the entire Pacific. And that drug corruption changed Hawaii's politics. It took a very, very long time for that entrenched aspect to sort of fade away. But there's a lot of dirt out there about this. And of course, again, Iran-Contra, guns down, cocaine back. I actually met Freeway Ricky Ross in Southern California at the height of his glory, if you will. And he used to brag that he was working for the Central Intelligence Agency. And as long as he worked for CIA, the Los Angeles Police Department would never touch him. And they never did. So what was going on in Arkansas under Governor Bill Clinton was, first of all, it was a violation of the Boland Act. It was foreign policy being conducted without the blessing of the United States Congress or even the U.S. State Department. It was a private little operation. Off the books. Guns down, cocaine back, sell the cocaine, launder the money. And that's where all of these land flip deals came in. Morgan Guarantee, the Arkansas Development Finance Authority were all part of the money laundering. And it led to some tragic occurrences, the train deaths. Those are included in the epic of Clinton's mess. It's all about drug money and drug money corruption. And as I was saying before we went to the top of the hour, you go and you look at the history of nations whose governments have become corrupted by drug criminals. And you will see exactly the same problems there that you're seeing here. And looking at this link that's emerging between Loretta Lynch, James Comey, and HSBC, there's something dark here. And we, the American people, need to be paying very, very close attention to that. All righty, let's go on back and grab a few more stories here. We'll do that here. UNICEF is reporting 1 out of every 9 children on Earth are being raised in a war zone. That, to me, is a tragedy. I can't imagine any child living in a war zone growing up with any kind of adjustment to life. They're going to be traumatized their entire childhood. But that's okay. We've got antidepressants to sell them. I'm getting more and more of this information coming on in about Loretta Lynch and how she fumbled HSBC. Apparently, Loretta Lynch's law firm was tied directly to Hillary Clinton. It's all one big happy family over there. All righty, so getting on to picking up some other news stories. And let's see. Brazilian soldiers have begun patrolling the Rio Olympic venues because of the rising crime rates. There have been some very shocking developments there. The crime is going up because of the economic hardship. They had an embarrassing incident at the beach where they're going to have the volleyball event. A mutilated body washed up on the shore. I think, unfortunately, I'm glad the Brazilian soldiers are patrolling the sites here because I don't think they have good security, and it's wide open for a false flag attack, like what happened at the Munich Olympics. It was all blamed on the Palestinians. And let's see, another story here. A member of the Senate Judiciary Committee has opened an investigation he believes could threaten the confirmation of Obama's nominee to replace Eric Holder as Attorney General Loretta Lynch. More about the HSBC stuff. Swedish police are now investigating over 40 reports of rape and groping by refugees at music festivals over the weekend. This forced refugee migration is just working out so good for those poor people of Europe here. All right, and let's see. Interestingly enough, as you're probably aware, on the 17th of this month, it's going to be the anniversary of the accidental shoot-down of TWA 800. There's a lot of material that's coming out in advance of it. Jack Cashill has a new book coming out, I understand, basically talking about all the facts leading to TWA 800. And we're going to spend a lot more time on that subject as we get closer to the 17th. But it is a fact that passenger jets do get shot down in military accidents. And we're going to say to our on-air affiliates, welcome back to the network. We're talking about TWA 800. The anniversary is coming up on the 17th. And again, the United Nations has confirmed they're aware of 25 incidents where innocent, unoffending passenger jets have been killed by accident by the military. We know for certain about the USS Vincent's shoot down of the Iranian Airbus. We know about the accidental shoot down of TWA 800 during a test of Aegis CEC. On my page on TWA 800, we have two more, an Aer Lingus flight and an Alitalia flight. The rest are still classified and blamed on suicidal pilots or space aliens in the UFO. All right, let's grab ourselves a phone call. Nelson in Canada, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey there, Michael. How you doing? Great show, by the way. I keep calling in once in a while.
Well, thank you.
Hillary Clinton, this whole ordeal that we're seeing here with the FBI, I'd like to mention it's not just the people in the States that are upset about what's going on. I mean, all day today I've been hearing about people here in Canada talking about how they're totally upset at how, the government heads are getting away with bloody murder.
Well, this is a kneecap to America's image abroad, and I understand that people like yourself aren't that surprised by it, but the U.S. has worked to propagandize the world that we are the greatest nation on earth, that we stand for the rule of law and morality and human rights and all the rest of it, and it must be a shock to a lot of people to see James Comey basically admit to the world we are a banana republic where the rulers are never held to account for anything that they do. And it's going to further erode other nations' trust in the United States because everybody understands when you deteriorate into a banana republic, you're basically looking at a nation that's run at the whim of the banana-in-chief, who can be very chaotic and reckless in their thinking. And again, that's what they're saying Hillary Clinton is. She's extremely reckless. Vote for Hillary Clinton because America needs an extremely reckless president.
I'm more afraid of not of the image that's going to be portrayed. I'm more afraid of the other governments like my own. I mean, I've seen it recently. I'll give you an example if you want. But our government's starting to show signs of the same stuff that's going on in the American government. Now that we have something here similar to the IRS. It's like the Canadian and Quebec Revenue Agency Services. And I had got a phone call a couple of years back, and the lady says, "Oh, you owe us $32,000 in back taxes." And I disputed it, and then suddenly the price dropped to $16,000, and then it dropped down. And yeah, I owed money, but nowhere near $32,000. And they came back to me saying it was an approximation of what I might owe. And it's like, to me, that's a government, really trying to find money. What if I was a 70-year-old, didn't know how to retaliate against the government, and I would have paid $32,000 just like that? and the government doesn't care.
No, the government doesn't care. And these tax collectors they're just about grabbing the money any way that they can, and the law be gosh darned. There's reason to suspect that the entire income tax system in this country is completely illegal. There is a constitutional prohibition on direct taxation that's not apportioned from the American people. And there's serious doubts that the 16th Amendment was actually properly ratified. In the lawsuit Sullivan versus United States, the judge actually sat up there, James C. Fox, sat up there and said, on examination, the 16th Amendment failed ratification. Then he goes on to say that we just pretend like it's the law.
Yeah, exactly. He can't pretend that. It has to be fact or nothing.
Yes.
So I thank you for your show. I'm going to keep watching. I'll let you get back to talking.
All right.
You have a great day, okay, Michael?
All right. Thank you very, very much here. I'm looking at this article here about Loretta Lynch's law firm tied to Hillary Clinton. And, they're all buddy there. Okay, over in Iraq, apparently there are more mortar strikes going on. 32 killed in Iraq. Earlier today, there was supposed to be all these attacks by ISIS inside Saudi Arabia. Now, we know that for the most part, ISIS is working for the U.S. government. So has the U.S. finally decided they're going to add Saudi Arabia to that list of to-be-invaded nations that Wesley Clark leaked all the way back in 2003? I can imagine that the U.S. government is getting sick and tired of dealing with Saudi Arabia's hereditary rulers who are all dealing with hereditary mental illnesses. And the fact that Saudi Arabia has been getting a little more cozy with Russia and China probably does not sit well with them either. So it may be that we're going to see a U.S. staged coup d'etat, color revolution, whatever you're going to call it, happen there in Saudi Arabia. The problem is, at this point, as I see it, the U.S. government has already bit off way more than they could ever possibly chew. They're stuck in Afghanistan. Even Obama's finally had to admit they have to keep troops up in there. We're still thrashing around Iraq. We're thrashing around Syria. We can't even get into Syria. Thrashing around Yemen and Libya and all these other places. Drone strikes all over. The U.S. has drawn down their military stockpiles. Their weapons are wearing out. You need to understand, when you look at these warplanes and ships and tanks and the rest of it, and they look very impressive, they're not designed to last a real long time, on the expectation that most of them are going to get blown up anyway after a few hours' use. And so the U.S. militarily, except for the nuclear arsenal, the U.S. is militarily very weak. And yet they're still trying to provoke war with Russia and China. And it's just absolutely insane. All of these money junkies in power. And I'm sure they all have their little bunkers and, the Greenbrier, Mount Weather, and the rest of it. So if they make a mistake, we'll just go down underground for 6 months and we'll come on out and everything will be hunky-dory. But they're literally risking the incineration of the surface of planet Earth in this argument over which brand of ink and paper we're all supposed to be using for the next 100 years. Okay, getting on back to Hillary, and we need a new name for Gate. Email Gate, everything Gate. Omnigate, that's what we're going to call it. There's too many gates. We have to start calling it the entire fence. Anyway, article coming out of PatriotRising.com. GOP lawmakers haven't given up on holding Clinton accountable. Now, James Comey said that he was not recommending charges for Hillary Clinton. But that doesn't mean that Hillary Clinton cannot be charged by a grand jury or otherwise held to account by the U.S. Congress. I think probably members of Congress are just as furious at what happened as the rest of us are. And it's not just Hillary Clinton getting away with it one more time. It's the damage to our national image. We're all raised with this image of what it means to be an American, that we're a democracy, that we have the rule of law, and all of that just got shattered. And it's so funny it happened right after Independence Day, because we had this celebration of all the years we imagine we've been free from tyranny, and one day later, James Comey just absolutely destroys that. Okay, apparently I'm getting word from our control room. ABC is saying the Justice Department will not pursue charges for Hillary. Ooh, big shock on that one. I mean, Loretta Lynch telegraphed that months ago, that she didn't think espionage and selling out the country and treason was, any reason to bring charges, but they're going to sue those global warming deniers out of existence. So they're trying to put this thing to bed, and I think it's just going to anger the American people. And you should be angry. For them to treat you like this, where the laws don't apply to them, that's not America. That's not the United States. You need to be as angry as I am. You need to get on the talk shows on TV and radio, and you need to scream your head off. This is not acceptable. And we cannot and will not obey a government that does not itself obey the laws of the land. We basically have an oligarchy in our midst. A bunch of drug criminals got together, bought themselves a government. All right, let's grab some phone calls. Lucky in Arizona, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, it's funny you should mention that about coinciding with Independence Day and this entire thing with Hillary Clinton scandal and Comey. But I was sending out some personal messages, to some friends on the 4th saying United States of America, basically, July 4th, 1776 through September 11th, 2001. But, Comey was... he was an executive at HSBC, so
he was on the board of directors.
Being basically an executive banker to the head of the FBI, I mean, that's like making a shoe salesman, like a nuclear in charge of a nuclear plant or something. It's just amazing. But now that you tied that together with drug laundering money and this entire scandal, yeah, the whole thing is it's like one big organized crime.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. It's one gigantic organized criminal operation posing as the U.S. government. Comey had no prior law enforcement experience at all. He was a member of the board of HSBC. He and Loretta Lynch were brought in to just bury and close over and cover up this HSBC drug money laundering. And they admitted to laundering drug money, and they paid a fine, but nobody went to jail.
Well, how long can the mainstream media just keep on? I guess, you have more distractions. Like you said, there'd probably be more false flag events and this type of things to distract and take away. But, I mean, this thing's ready to bust at the seams, it seems like to me. How long could you keep on sweeping this stuff or packing the closet and trying to shut the door before this thing just busts wide open?
Well, if you're in the corporate media, as long as those big fat paychecks keep showing up, you think these people are paid hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year to tell you the truth? Of course not. They're paid that money to lie to you convincingly that everything is fine, everything is great, go back to work, pay your taxes, breed us more workers and children. That's what they're paid to do. And they're going to go on doing it. They're absolutely shameless. They're going to go on doing it, as long as somebody signs those paychecks.
Well, you have a lot of courage, and the way your show, it flows, the amount of information every day consistently, like for 3 hours, plus the website. It's really awesome. And like I said, I get most of I open up the phone in the morning and get the headlines, just like in the old days when you'd have an orange juice and a piece of toast and read the paper. That's where I'm getting at least the headlines, But the nature of our, lifestyle has always been pretty quick. And you get real concise, and the radio show's awesome. I just don't see how this type of truth can, continue to be. And then those, we call them prostitutes right now with the big money. I just can't see how anybody could continue with these jobs, whether you're in government or media. It's all fake. But I guess, like you said, if you take the paycheck away, they'd be reduced to somebody like you and me that's just waiting for the next, paycheck or a direct deposit or something like that.
Well, you need to understand the people who are paid professional liars are very comfortable with that role. They don't feel any shame. They understand this is the life choice they've made. I'm going to sit up here in very expensive clothes and tell America what the corporations and government wants them to believe, and that's my job, and I'm very good at it, and I get a lot of money for doing it. And they're not feeling any shame whatsoever. But we may be at the flashpoint that happened at the Soviet Union, where everybody just reached that point of throwing up their hands and saying, this is just completely unacceptable. Anyway, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to take a break for commercials. We got 2 more phone calls waiting on the line. 800-313-9443. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And true to form, the corporate media has now dropped all reporting about Hillary's get out of jail free card, and they're now focused on this shooting and protest in Baton Rouge. So our caller from Homeland Security yesterday was absolutely bang spot on. Change the focus, change the story, give the media something else to look at in the hope that all of this is going to fade away. And it isn't. They thought Benghazi was going to fade away. It didn't. All right, let's go to the phones here. Richard in New York. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. How are you?
Fine.
Listen, I know you're very close to Pearl Harbor, and this story came up on Drudge that's going on now, submitted by the U.S. Naval Institute regarding REMPAC and the fact that we have a Russian spy ship. Can you see that from where you are?
I haven't actually gone out to look, but I overlooked Pearl Harbor itself. We had a great fireworks show on the 4th. But I might get out one of the telescopes and see if I can see it, although I don't really imagine it coming in that close to Honolulu. It's probably going to be over by the Pacific Missile Test Range on Kauai, which is where most of these exercises are taking place. But we're sure hearing a lot of heavy aircraft going in and out of the air base down there at the bottom of the hill.
Right. I was being facetious, by the way, when I said that you could see a Russian spy ship from your house. But the other thing on this is that it's being reported that the Russians have sent their sole aircraft carrier to Syria again, the Admiral Kuznetsov. Do you have any information on that?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely true, and it's in response to the 2 U.S. carrier groups that are in the Mediterranean right now. And I don't think it's Russia's only carrier. It's their biggest and their newest. I don't think it's the only one that they've got.
Okay. And you're also aware that this is the time of the year that these carrier battle groups or Marine Expeditionary units normally change spaces. They're called the out choppers and the in choppers. And normally, sometime in the summer, they will change spaces from the Med to the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. Just to be aware of what's going on with some of these rumors regarding Russian naval activity. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the phone call. The normal naval doctrine is for ships to be rotated in and out of areas of concern to basically avoid overstressing a single crew with being in a potential combat situation. It's also for training. They want the ship's crews to be trained to operate under various conditions, and obviously the Mediterranean is a very different story than the North Atlantic. Now, that being said, we're not in a normal situation. We're in a situation where the U.S. government is trying to provoke Russia into doing something overt to make it look like this is all Russia's fault. Bad Putin, and it isn't. We know who the aggressor is. All right, we're going to switch over to Philip in Virginia. Aloha, Philip. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you. Aloha. Yeah, that's pretty bombshell about this HSBC connection here and that whole orbit that's coming to light. I'm sorry, I had the wrong button push. How's that?
Much better.
Yes, you got to have all the buttons pushed and knobs twisted, don't you, Mike?
Yeah, and I got too many of them around here for just me alone, so...
Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to give you a quick update. I don't know if you covered this Virginia delegate lawsuit that's trying to derail Trump.
Yes.
Encouraging news about it is that the Virginia Attorney General said today that he's going to seek to have the case dropped, which seems kind of like conflict because he would probably want Trump not to be. He's a Democrat. He probably want Trump to get dumped.
Well, there's another factor, and that is that the American people are now aware of the degree of fraud and criminality that has been the hallmark of this entire primary season, and they understand people are very angry over what's been going on. Bernie Sanders supporters are furious, and Donald Trump's supporters are literally threatening riots and revolution if their candidate gets ejected. We need to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back to you after these few words. Hi, America. Welcome back to the show here, and I think we were talking with Philip in Virginia. Are you still on the line? I guess not. We're going to go over to Jason in Ontario. Jason, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Thanks. Nice talking to you. And I'm sorry if I missed you earlier in the day. I just got off work, but I'm worried about these polls. I'm getting information that Donald Trump's doing a lot better than the polls are indicating, mostly because of skewed, specious questions. What do you know about that?
Well, if they're going to steal the election, they have to rig the polls, because if the election results don't match what you're told the polling results are, then you're going to get suspicious. But we know the polls are all over the place. Rasmussen actually has Trump ahead. And I'm waiting to see the results of polls that are taken after this whole get-out-of-jail-free card, because I think people are going to be very, very angry. When you have one-third of Democrats think she should have been charged, that's a serious, serious situation.
Mm. So they really do not reflect the reality of his support right now.
No, they don't. They're out there not to measure public opinion, but to try and manufacture it by constantly telling you, Hillary's winning the polls. Hillary's winning the polls. You should vote for Hillary. You want to support the winner. Hillary's winning the polls. And on and on and on and on. And
they might want to be careful what they wish for. They just might get it. But I guess I understand that, but aren't we waking up? Aren't people onto this now?
Well, yeah, they are more and more, and I think it's going to start accelerating. For a lot of Americans, this letting Hillary skate on espionage charges, that's the ice bucket challenge right in the face, and a lot of people are very angry. Some of the email I'm getting, I'm hearing the word revolution all over the web right now, and that's frankly scaring the heck out of me.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And apparently the Republican National Committee is already out there with a brand new ad intercutting Hillary Clinton's prior statements with what James Comey has acknowledged she did. And again, the more I think about it, the more I think that however it was that James Comey was brought into this deal, whether he was being blackmailed or he was directly ordered by Obama, or he could be blackmailed over this whole HSBC thing, which is now emerging. But for whatever it is, he wasn't happy, because if you take out his statement at the end about we do not recommend charges, everything else he said was a broadside into Hillary's campaign rhetoric for the last 6 months. So it's getting intense out there. All righty, let's see. Getting on back to some news stories. Let's see. Former White House counsel C. Boyden Gray, who worked as legal counsel for both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, said that Hillary Clinton should not be given a security clearance and not receive daily intelligence briefings, because she cannot be trusted. I mean, the whole excuse they're putting on out there is, oh, she was reckless. She was careless. She was extremely careless. We don't need that quality in a president. We want serious, thoughtful, careful, unemotional, not screaming and throwing ashtrays at the wall in the Oval Office. And James Comey did, in fact, tell the entire nation why Hillary Clinton would be dangerous as president. She's extremely reckless. Even if you take the FBI's report at face value, it's a condemnation of Hillary's ability to serve, and serve wisely. Now, Obama is trying to counter that already as they can take their little above-the-law tour across the United States of America. He's out there saying, she's the best qualified person ever to run for the White House, blah, 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 blah. And we know that's not true. She actually flunked her first bar exam. She has a long history of lying, of dirty dealing. No, she is not fit to be president. And she knows it, or she wouldn't be trying to steal it so hard. She clearly does not believe in democracy when you look at all of the massive fraud that took place during the primaries. Very clearly, Hillary Clinton does not believe in the principles of democracy and the will of the people. Hillary believes in Hillary Clinton. And if she steals that White House, do you think she's going to be happy there? No. She's a globalist. She's fully on board the New World Order agenda. She wants one government over the entire planet, and she wants that center seat for herself. And we have to deal with that. We have to educate our fellow Americans to exactly what Hillary Clinton is like. We need to go after the people who still think she's wonderful. And she's got them brainwashed. She's running her campaign like it's a personality cult. Like Jim Jones, in Jonestown. Here, have some Kool-Aid. And it is that dangerous. Now, 1/3 of Democrats in this poll we talked about think Hillary should be charged. What that tells us is the other 2/3 don't. And that tells us these are people who don't care about the rule of law, who don't care about the possibility of treason. They just want a woman as president, like the bimbos over on The View. They don't care what Hillary has done. Hillary could set fire to Bill Clinton on live national TV, and they'd say, oh, well, she's showing how dangerous polyester synthetic clothing is, or some other such nonsense. It's a personality cult, and the worst tyrants in history have been supported by personality cults. Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler. Their support is not from people who think and evaluate carefully, but people who believe, who are caught up in worship of that personality. And that is a red warning sign of what is in store for this nation. We're going to have to mobilize behind Donald Trump, or if Trump is replaced, whoever replaces him, and get an overwhelming landslide vote that even massive election fraud cannot overcome. And Brexit proved it's possible. The Brexit vote gives us hope. And the message we need to get on out there is it is not enough for Donald Trump to be leading a little bit, because that can be stolen from him. He has to be so far out in front of Hillary Clinton that they can't do enough vote theft to steal the election. There's a huge risk of being caught. And they've already been caught. There are lawsuits being filed all over the place. Corporate media is not, I might mention, reporting on this. Because you're supposed to believe that our elections are honest and above reproach. Just like you're expected to believe that Hillary did nothing wrong with her email server. It's all about belief. Don't think. Don't analyze. Don't be logical. Don't look at the facts. Who are you going to believe? Hillary Clinton or your own lying eyes? We're at a very dangerous crossroads. Hillary Clinton is very much in favor of war. She's gone public saying, as president, she will attack Iran. Doesn't matter if Iran has done anything or not. Israel has ordered Hillary Clinton to attack Iran, and so Iran must go. After all, they're just Iranians. Who needs those people, right? Hillary's fully on board with Wall Street. She has whored herself to the special interests. And there's one other reason why Hillary is a bad idea as a president. And as I mentioned yesterday, that guy called on in and said, Putin's got the emails and he's going to dump them. And I don't think Putin would do that. Because a blackmailable Hillary Clinton in the Oval Office is more useful to Vladimir Putin than an unblackmailable Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump has come out and said he wants to go back to being friends with Russia and China and engage in peaceful trade. But Putin is probably looking at the reality that Hillary Clinton is going to try and steal this election in November. And so he's going to hang on to these emails so that he can blackmail her to serve Russia. And that's the warning sign. Because everybody who got those emails off her server can now control Hillary Clinton. Everybody who got special treatment from the State Department in exchange for donations to that charitable foundation can now blackmail and control her. And that means when it comes to that presidential list of priorities, the American people and the American nation are at the very bottom of that list. Now, I'm hoping that you are feeling as angry about what James Comey and Loretta Lynch just did. And apparently, according to all this stuff that I'm being sent, they're joined at the hip at HSBC, which was laundering drug money. But if you're as angry as I am, you have an assignment. Your mission, Jim, should you choose to accept it, is to get on the phones. Don't waste your time with members of Congress. They already know. Don't waste your time with the FBI. Get on the phones to your local TV and radio talk shows. Get on the phone to C-SPAN and air your anger in public. And if you cannot get on those phone lines, then you need to start talking to everybody that you know, everybody in your social media, saying, this is it. Okay. I'm being messaged from our control room here. But you need to get the word out. Just like everybody who was calling into the show today, that were expressing their anger. That is a good thing to do. It is a good thing to do to express your anger at what this nation has been turned into. By these money junkies, by the Central Intelligence Agency, by Wall Street, by the Federal Reserve. Enough is enough is enough is enough. And it's time for people to just say, we want no more part of this. And it's time for the federal government to go the way of the Soviet Union, into that dustbin of history. Because it's clearly not working for the interest of the American people. It's all about conquest of other countries, to steal their wealth, to give to our money junkies, while the money junkies in other countries are trying to figure out ways to steal our wealth, to give to their money junkies. You can see how it goes back and forth. The link between private central banks and wars is irrefutable. And we should be tired of being puppets on their strings. Most important, though, and this is a message to everybody who's a parent or who may be a parent in the future. It's one thing for us to have sort of accommodated and adjusted to life as it currently is here in the United States of America. But I want you to take a good look around at how things are in this country and ask yourself, is this a country you want your children to grow up in? And that's a valid question. I hold it as the highest moral imperative that we leave to the next generation a better nation than that which was left to us. And sadly, my generation has failed to do that. We are leaving a far worse, far darker nation to future generations than we inherited from our parents. A world that's filled with Common Core and brainwashing and spying and monitoring and surveillance. It truly is a dystopian nightmare right out of George Orwell's 1984. And by the way, for those of you unaware of it, George Orwell actually wrote that book as a warning to our generation, what was likely to come if we were not on guard. Unfortunately, too many of our leaders have basically viewed it as dictatorship for dummies, and they're following the instructions. If you have not read 1984, you should do it. Or at the very least, hunt down the movie. Richard Burton and John Hurt did a fabulous, fabulous job. Because the warnings have been out there. We've been on this path for so many years. I've been involved in the truth movement since my inadvertent conversion over Vince Foster back in 1994. And it is very depressing at times to see the nation that I love or loved literally rot away. It's like when my mother was dying of cancer or of the cancer treatment, I'm not sure which one. And just having to watch her wither and waste away day after day after day after day after day. That's what it feels like, watching what's happened to the United States of America. What James Comey did is the wake-up call that we do not have a democracy. We don't even have a republic. It is a full-blown third world oligarchy, where the powerful are never held to account, but by golly, you'd better pay that traffic ticket or we're coming after you. I wonder if that was Comey's oath of office. I promise to enforce the laws except for Hillary Clinton, but the rest of you, watch out. So, anyway, we're coming up here on our next commercial break. We're going to be back with the last segment of our program here. And yes, as the callers noted, I am very angry. This is not the America I thought I lived in. I don't think this is the America any of you thought you lived in. And it is time to get angry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be enraged at all the lies and the frauds and the deception and the stolen money and the stolen children. You have every right to be angry. And you don't need my permission to do it. Just go on out. It's time to be angry. It's time to be enraged. We'll take a break for commercials, and we'll be back. Hi, America. Welcome back to last segment of our program today. A couple of things are developing here. ABC News ran their own poll, and they got 93% of respondents said Hillary Clinton should be prosecuted for what she did. The numbers are trending against Hillary. And the longer the government stands firm, the more disenfranchised and illegitimate the whole system is going to look. That's what's coming on down there. Now, the news is still talking about this shooting down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is a tough part of town. It's a nasty place. And how Black Lives Matter are getting ready to protest and riot. So we just put a story up at WhatReallyHappened.com to remind everybody that the email, or the text messages of the Black Lives Matter leader reveal there is a concerted plan by the Obama administration for a summer of chaos and martial law. They do love to play dirty. And the reason they are is they're scared. They are absolutely scared. They've been able to control us for decades and decades with lies, fraud, and deception. That doesn't work anymore. And if they want to hang on to their phony baloney jobs and have their hands always in our wallets and the life and limb of our children for their wars, they got to figure out some other way to exert control over us. Oh, it's a national emergency. There's riots. We've got martial law and the rest of it. The big question is going to be, how much will our rank and file military support the establishment of a dictatorship? Now, being on the island of Oahu, there are a lot of military people around here. And I know a lot of them. And by and large, they're all strict constitutionalists. They've sworn an oath to that Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And many of them are not happy with the direction they're seeing the country go in. So if Obama was going to try some stunt to declare martial law and a national emergency and shred what's left of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it might not go smoothly at all. At all. I'm noticing here that all of a sudden this story about how the FBI director and his links to drug cartel money laundering at HSBC, it's starting to go viral all over the net. And everybody is scratching their heads wondering how somebody who is tangled up with drug money laundering gets to be head of the FBI, especially with no real law enforcement experience. I think we've just lifted another stone, and we're looking at what's squirming and thrashing around in the slime underneath. So we're coming up here on the end of the show, and again, your mission, should you choose to accept it, get on the air at radio and TV talk shows. Talk about how unacceptable it is that Hillary Clinton endangered national security and will face no consequences for it. Go ahead and be angry. You deserve it. You've waited for it. You've earned it. Let it out. There's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, stay safe, stay informed, stay skeptical. Thanks to everybody donating to the website. We really need the help right now. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.